everybody. Welcome to another Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. We've got a fun one today. Unfortunately, Phil is not feeling well today, so he will not be able to join us. But we do have Caleb Garner from 8-Bit Widgets on. We're going to talk about everything that he's been doing. He's got a great store, makes a lot of great products. We're going to be talking about those. As well as in order to kind of help fill the spot that Retro Bliss has vacated, we've got yet another special guest who is no stranger to either of our channels. So let me, without further ado, bring them on. Our special guest, actually filling in for me because he's going to sit in my slot, is intellivision Casey.
What's going on, guys?
So because you're filling in for me, you got to run all the chat, okay?
Oh boy,
I know you have no ability to do so, but that's your job. And of course, the man of the hour, Caleb. How's it going?
Hey everyone.
Brian BD Retro Mods was supposed to be on tonight. He may pop on, but he isn't responding to my texts. So, okay. First of all, why don't welcome, and why don't we talk a little bit about what you do? Why don't you tell us what kind of stuff that you do?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show. This is really awesome. I've watched your shows for a while. I love your trailers and your reviews and stuff with the creative intros. So it's always awesome to see what you're doing with that. So
thanks, man.
Absolutely, man. So basically, I guess it started a couple of years ago. I was just getting into 3D printing. I had a printer, and I was kind of experimenting. I saw the question, "What the heck is a widget?" So
yeah. I mean, you can explain that if you want.
Sure, I get it. So basically, I just kind of was looking for some kind of a generic thing of a bob. I thought about calling things gizmos or whatchamacallits, etc. And widget just kind of seemed like a thing. And the term widget typically is applied to, we got a guest joining.
Hey, I'm here.
Welcome.
Sorry, was having technical difficulties. StreamYard was not wanting to cooperate, so we're good.
Awesome. So I was just explaining it. So widget just became kind of like a catch-all for all the miscellaneous little 8-bit related products
gadgets
I was making, and so it was kind of a catch-all, a generic thing. And I just called Mr. Widgets. I was just like, Mr. Wizard or whatever. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah. So the actual definition of a widget is a small gadget or mechanical device, especially one whose name is unknown or unspecified.
Right. Exactly.
In terms of computing, because like in the software that I use, you've got a lot of widgets. It's a small interface application for a bigger application. So it's got multiple definitions.
True.
That's what a widget is.
Yeah. So basically, but just kind of how it got started was a couple of years ago. I was getting into 3D printing, and I think actually, funny enough, the Intellivision was the first thing that started this whole thing, which became what it is. And essentially, what it was one of the very first products. It's so funny when you think about things, how like a decision or a thing that's available or not can completely go down a rabbit hole you would never expect. And the great example is all of this started because remember the dual action controller that they used to have, that was where they would take two flashbacks and merge them? I just wanted one of those, right? And they were no longer available. I kind of came in late to the scene. He was no longer making them anymore. It was Paul, right? I think it was Paul.
Yeah, Paul Nermix.
Yeah. So Paul was making those, but he stopped making them. Now there's a DIY on how to do it yourself. And if I really wanted to I could have kind of done it, but like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to tear apart controllers and get into all that. So I was looking at my Intellivision controller, and I'm just like, what could I do to make two become one? And so I came up with this coupler idea. And so the first design I came up with was basically that. It was just like a thing that would just hold two for myself. And I thought, I guess I could sell them, and maybe somebody else would like it, because I think everyone would really like this run and gun type stuff without, and this is of course before the Sprint and stuff. So, so I just kind of made that. And then someone's like, hey, they made Robotron for the 2600, right? I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know that. And I'm like, I can make a coupler. I have an Atari. I can make a coupler for that. And it just kind of became a thing of just like, okay, well, what other systems do I had a bunch of systems. I've got an Odyssey, I have a Coleco, and I started making couplers for basically every system that I owned.
I actually first found out about you because I bought Robot Ron for the Odyssey 2, and it came with one of your couplers.
Right.
And I actually, in that review, I reviewed the coupler as well. And that's when
you did a review on that.
Yeah, because you commented on it, and because that's when you found out that there were different molds of the controller things, because mine were like scraping to go in, and I was like, oh, I wish it had padding, and that's when you figured out.
That's right. Okay, I didn't realize that was you. Now that I look back on that, like at that point, the person on YouTube made a video, kind of thing,
Yeah.
So that's cool though. Well, that's funny. So yeah, so it just kind of hey, Retro Bliss, what's going on? But yeah. So it's Mr. Poe, hey. So basically, it just kind of went on like that. It kind of went on along there. Just kind of made a bunch of couplers, and then it was things like another example was making adapters for like I had an Odyssey 2, and I wanted to use an Atari joystick with it, and just to kind of try it out. And I learned you could do these things. I was just learning through Atari age mostly. Like you can just reroute the wires. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe I should do that. And then same thing with the flashback. I wanted to use the flashback controllers for the Intellivision with the regular Intellivision, and I couldn't because of course they weren't wired right. But then I made that because that's another one. Again, Paul stopped making those too, so I was like, well, I just need to make one because I can't buy them, and so it just kind of turns into a thing where it's like, well, I guess I know how to make it now. I might as well try and sell it. Since Paul stopped selling them, I'm like, well, I'm not competing with him anymore because he's not making them. If he was, I would have just bought them and been done with it. And they're kind of a pain in the butt to make, so I kind of wish he had. So I never got into it because they are really kind of tedious to like wire and test.
That is one thing I'll say and it's not limited to just Intellivision. There are a lot of people who make really cool products, but they only make them for like a year.
Yeah.
And then they stop making them. And it's like,
then they're expensive, hard to find.
Yeah. And like my Ultimate PC interface.
Yep.
I was recommending these to everybody. It's like, oh, this is so good, so good. And now there's a new one, but for
new one.
Yep, I have the one you have, and you're right. I was one of the last guys to probably buy one of those because I was telling people.
Me too.
Yeah, I was like, this is so cool. And I was letting people know, and people would ask, "Do you know how to do it?" And I was like, "Go buy the thing." And like, they're out of them, and it just stayed that way for a long time. But actually, so I was fortunate enough to work with David to I 3D printed 100 of these cases for him, shipped off 11 pounds worth of cases for that thing. So he's going to be putting those. He's got the boards now, so. David, I don't know what his timeline is for launching them, but they're definitely they're coming soon. So, and they're really nice. I love the fact that he got away with the wires. Like you and I have got the little dongles.
Yes,
it's just a nice one solid piece now. So,
I like that better.
That's nice. I do kind of like the wires just because my desk is such a mess. I can leave it over there and then just pull the wire that I need.
Oh, for sure.
I do want to give a quick shout out because it's a brand new channel for those in the Intellivision community who are familiar with Pierre Garot. He has a new channel where he'll be streaming quite often. I think he's streaming like 4 or 5 days a week.
He just got done streaming and called out this show right before he stopped.
Yeah, so his channel is right there, Dimax Retro Gamer.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Make sure to check him out.
That's cool. So so that's kind of it. It's just kind of and then I guess. After that went on for a little while, it kind of got to the thing where that's where I had some ideas that were getting a little bit outside of my capability, which was where I had these ideas. And I just kind of reconnected with my best friend from high school, Russ Hofer. And he and I started talking about the idea. And he had electrical engineering background. So I was like, well, that's awesome. So, and he was kind of like, well, let's think about something we could do that would be like a simple first project. And that's where I brought up the idea of like the MCPs, which are these, basically socket protectors for a system. So it was a nice mix of I will 3D print the case part of it, and then he will make the PCB and the interface part of it, and then we'll sell them. So we started doing that for a bunch of different systems. And so that kind of, so then there was that. And then, I think that went well enough. We were happy with the results of that. People found them useful, and we made a few variations. We still have more to make. We just kind of got caught up into the whole with the NTNS and the NT port. But in 2026, we'll probably get back to making some more of those for like the 50. Well, no, we have the 5200 just came out, but probably getting into like Sega Master System, Super Nintendo, N64, some of the sort of early 90s era systems as well.
I know you're talking about like the protectors and stuff like the MCP. but how funny would a Nintendo 64 coupler look? We've got like 6 handles now.
I know, right? That is a funny one. That'd be pretty crazy because you got those 2 grip joysticks and you have the 2 things. I don't know. I'm gonna have to try it. I've got a couple of controllers. I have the system.
Yeah.
But are there any games that actually would use it? That's the thing about it, right? There's no game that actually takes advantage of 2 of those at the same time. Not yet. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the N64 homebrew community is like. I don't know what they're doing much in that system.
I've never heard of anything about that.
Well, I did do the launch stream for one, the Nintendo 64 version of Winsley's Guardian. I know Mr. Postile actually got in on that Kickstarter. But it's not a big homebrew scene. The Nintendo 64, I think in order to make cartridges is expensive. Emulation has not caught up the way other systems have.
Right.
And just it's difficult to program for. I think it's a little too modern. I think the 2D stuff is far more common and easy to approach when it comes to homebrew.
Yeah, I think the homebrew scenes get progressively smaller as the systems get increasingly difficult to develop for. You know, I mean, there's Dreamcast games even and stuff. I know that, and 3DO games, but there aren't.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
you know, it's and of course it also depends on I think the size of the community. I'm not sure the PlayStation 1 has a lot of homebrews or not. I would imagine it's a big system, so I'd like to think there's enough people who want to throw their hat in the ring.
Yeah,
I still can't think of many off the top of my head, but it's not really one of my systems of like I have a deep history with either. So,
I'm out of respect for our guest. I'm not going to dive into the whole hockey thing, but you know what? We have to let you guys win every once in a while. The last time you guys won hockey gold in men's was 1980. So, you know, when we beat you for gold in 2002, when we beat you for gold in 2010, when we beat you again in 2014, you know, you guys have had silver enough. You can have a gold, but you're props to Hellebuck. He stood on his head. That game should have been a Canadian victory. Your goalie was awesome.
Just when I didn't watch it, so I'm like go local sports team. So it's I'm not a sports guy.
No, it was a good game, and U.S. has a really good team. So power to you guys.
Well. A better game than the
women's as well. Yeah, that's so. I'm trying to think when so 2 Olympics ago the U.S. won, but then like the 3 like last year or last one we won, and then the 3 prior to the last U.S. So women's hockey, it's always either U.S. or Canada, and it's usually Canada. So again, you guys had both of them this time.
Well, you know, we get lucky every once in a while.
Yeah, so in GoldenEye on the N64, you can use 2 controllers to play the game in single player. I did not know that. But there's another comment back here. Savitor is just a mastermind. Because he was playing Utopia against himself with one of your couplers.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Who won?
I still have to figure out how to play Utopia. That's one of those that's on my list.
Oh, it's
like
great.
It's I knowing that it's like the original, like sort of like sim, you know, early sim type of game is definitely, you know, is worth investigating to get into that. So plus it's always interesting that my long, like this year has been, so the 3D printing and making all the widgets and stuff really derailed my homebrew game ambitions. Cause that was the whole thing. I was actually getting into making games. And then the 3D printing thing kind of took on a life of its own and it completely shot because DZJ was being a super helpful tutor me and mentor to me as I was learning a lot. I was getting into it, but then I just got so sucked into making this stuff. My brain couldn't go places.
I really want to talk to you about that too, and like kind of your ambitions, because you did mention something to me when we were talking. But before we do that, I do want to say in the description of at least my video, does somebody have an echo? I think you might have an echo again.
I was just putting it in private chat, the echo again.
All right, let's see. I'll turn it down. Is that better?
Not really, but that's okay. It's not terrible, but there is an echo.
I think of it, the headphones.
What was I gonna say? I do want it. So in the description of at least the video on the stream on my channel, there's a link to the 8-Bit Widgets Facebook page, and you can get to everything else from there. But I did want to show your Etsy store.
Oh yeah.
So this is where you do most of your sales,
right? See an eBay, yeah.
And you can see he's got a wide variety of items. 5200 MCP, 7800 MCP, the Intellivision Sprint offshoot, so that you can have that gives that concave back, so that people can feel like it's. For me, it doesn't matter, but I guess it's really important for some people.
Some games, most of the time it doesn't for me either, but that thing helps some games.
Right. It's specifically like things like Space Armada and Astro Smash, any game that you're doing a lot of repetitive button mashing. Honestly, and I'm not saying just because I made it, it does really help. Because I was trying to play Space Armada with the original, and I love Space Armada. And I was kind of finding it was a little uncomfortable after a while doing that. And the offshoot just made that just much simpler,
a little better
for that kind of gameplay. But it's not, you don't need it for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, for example, games that require the use of the direction pad and stuff, so, or using the number pads. But yeah, it was kind of a funny thing, because I originally was just trying to make a simple thing with sleeve over it and just kind of give you a little recess behind it. But the problem was that I noticed when I did it, I was like, when I'm pressing the button, I'm actually creating a torque in my hand because I'm leveraging this piece behind it. And you're pressing like this, which created a turn. I was like, that's not. So I went back to the drawing board and then scrapped that simple idea and ended up coming up with this little bit more involved product. But it was. I think it's. I mean, I think people like it. Like, so it's been nice to see people.
I'm gonna have to try some of these. Like I said, I've got the Odyssey 2 one. I don't think I have any of your other couplers. But I do have this. This does look neat. This is a really elegant coupler. I like.
Yeah, I revamped all of them actually after doing this one, because basically I had I liked the Sprint one. I couldn't do the Sprint the way I did the other ones because, of course, it doesn't have the concave thing in the back of it anymore, right? Yeah. So I had to redesign it altogether. But here's what happened. I actually printed one in brown, but in my old design of the coupler. And when it got to the person, I think I hadn't really vetted that particular brown material, and it cracked from him putting it inside. And I was like, that does it. I'm going back to the drawing board. And I, sure enough, and I was just basically spent an evening working on revising this version to work with it. Plus, the nice advantage of it is the new version works both with flashback and 2609 controllers. So in other words, one coupler now does what used to take two couplers. I still had to make one for the Intellivision 2 that was unique, because the shape of the Intellivision 2 is
different. It's
just too different to try to make it fit everything. So I went ahead and made that, but it did reduce the need for one more coupler. So
and then we've got it says IntelliPort, but it's now branded the IntiPort. We'll talk about that in the IntiNES later. Backbit Pro adapters, and then couplers for like literally everything.
Some of these are actually designed also. It's kind of like you go back up to the one that's the Star. That's basically for Star Raiders, right?
Yeah.
But my thought was I would love to see homebrew developers in the Atari community make a game like a fighting game. Like imagine Street Fighter 2. You now have access to 12 buttons and a joystick. And I mean, there's a lot of cool.
We were slamming last week. We were slamming the controls of Double Dragon on the Atari 2600. You could probably do some neat stuff with Double Dragon on that. Have the key.
Yeah.
Just hack it so that different buttons do different things.
Right. That is basically that's called the arcade version. I also have an inline version, which looks more like the Atari 5200, where the joystick is more the pads behind it. It just becomes like a big fat looking 5200 controller almost, the way it's oriented. But I like the arcade version better because it just opens up that that option.
Yeah. But I can imagine you sit and you just put this on the table in front of you or on your lap, and like that.
Well, that was
really
the thing.
nice.
I think the game was really designed to be like a two-player experience. Like when I was a kid playing Star Raiders, I had a friend who was like the co-pilot, and he was managing the buttons while I was the pilot. And that was really cool because it's a co-op type of experience. But let's face it, we all know we're mostly playing these games by ourselves because all of our friends are all remote. So I thought I'd come up with something that made it a little bit more comfortable, to play it by yourself.
So, I mean, you've got tons and tons of stuff here. Have you ever considered, because we happen to have an expert here on the panel, have you ever considered actually making fully custom controllers? Because if you're a 3D printing master and you got all these ideas of how you could line things up, we've got here, I don't know if you've ever heard of BD Retro Mods.
Yeah, I've watched I've seen him on Casey's show.
There's the plug.
He makes a whole bunch of really cool controllers and joysticks and arcade sticks and stuff like that. You make shells for him to put stuff in and design.
I love collaborating with people. It's that's like I said, that's what I did with this right here. That that was something I did with David. I'm always happy to team up with anybody who's got an idea for something.
So really, this episode of the podcast is me matchmaking.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, my whole thing is exactly why BD Retro Mods already makes those. So I don't get into. I try to not do things that people are already doing, and my philosophy in general with this stuff was kind of like, I just want to be, most of us kind of have all this stuff laying around already. So it's just, why not just try to put the things to use that are already present.
I'm sorry. I just read, I was trying not to bring comments up when we were on the side there because it would cover your face. And I hate doing that to people. But then you were talking and then this comment comes up and Paul got me really good.
Oh, that is funny. I just so that's basically the idea. But certainly, I've loved collaborating with people. That's like, so Russ and I work together. I did this one right here. Of course, this is the new let's see how it looks up from there. Right, Ultimate PC interface. This is the new one coming out. There'll be 100 available.
I'm actually going to bring you. Could you show that again?
David Harley here.
Show that again.
Oh, sorry. Is David Harley here? Are you on, David?
He is not in the chat, I don't believe.
Okay, anyway, this is basically, so what it is, it's not, he didn't make it, but the guy who originally made it, he basically, I think he obtained the rights to essentially do it himself. Because the guy got out of the business altogether. It's kind of like when Joe stopped making the LTO. This guy allowed him to continue it.
And those things are amazing.
What's that?
And those things are amazing.
They really are.
It's so nice to be able to play. Because I used to have to play emulated Intellivision with this all the time.
Right.
And this only works with the thumbstick. And, the thumbstick works great for like Shark or Tron Deadly Discs. And it works absolutely terrible for some other games.
Like Lock and Chase or something.
Yeah, so it's nice to be able to hook up either like an OG Hugo or an original controller for the games that benefit from that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad that there's an option out there.
Absolutely, no, it's for sure. But yeah, so that's definitely. So like I said, I definitely love collaborating with people. If you ever need something, man, let me know. I'm always happy to do work on something. And so so I'm trying to think of anything like.
Well, because Brian has to think of new things for Phil to have to buy.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I still need to get over it.
It's also been fun experimenting or learning. So I've also been testing out something. I don't know if you guys have been following the conversation, but I was trying to look into the whole chroma, the chroma depth stuff using because there's. So I keep learning all these like interesting things that are probably common knowledge to everyone else. But when I learned, for example, that what's that game, the aerial one? I can't think. Anyway, there's a what I can't think of it now. It's one of the games, Hover Force. Sorry, Hover Force.
Oh, okay, Hover Force.
So back in the day, Hover Force was actually intended to be released as a 3D game through the use of its color palette, through the chroma, using chroma depth, where basically you would look at these glasses. They're not the red and blue that we're thinking of like with the Sega 3D, but this still can create a 3D illusion through the use of different colors. Where depending on what spectrum, if you have a black background, then certain colors will look closer than other ones and it's a pseudo 3D effect. So I bought these off AliExpress, and I think these are a little bit nicer quality. Like the actual lens is actually it's actually like a lens you would expect to be in a pair of glasses. Where these are the ones you can get on Amazon for like $3 cheaper. but all it is inside here is essentially is that Mylar flexible stuff.
Yeah.
And everything. So for a few dollars extra, these are a little bit nicer, but they're effectively the same in terms of the illusion. So, but when again getting back to the homebrew stuff, I thought this would be so cool to make some games that would actually leverage 3D with something that's reasonably affordable to get your hands on, and just have a little bit of a 3D experience, or even make an optional mode where you could have 2 color palettes depending on which if you have the glasses, this is how the game's going to look in this color, or if you don't, then you'd have a different color palette that would look more appropriate. So air raid for the NT. Yeah. Air. I don't know air raid.
I guarantee you the first on it would be David Harley. He'd be making 3D versions of all, like horse racing 3D.
Oh my God! Right. See, I'm saying exactly. It's no kidding. Seriously, it's because I think that horse racing would work well with that too, because it is kind of like, because everything's on top of each other. As long as you pick the right colors, one would look a little closer than the other one, and that would be a really great actual use case for that. So yeah, for sure. It's so it's just been, and again, I just get requests too. Like I had a guy who had the Boss controller, so he wanted a coupler made. Oh, there's air raid. Okay, so is that like the one where the gun goes back and forth and can shoot up the parachutists? The parachutes are falling from the sky?
No, it was a Atari 2600 game made by Manavision. I did a video on it. It's a shooter. I've played it. I'm trying to remember. Yes, that's an Intellivision
version
of it, but
picture the gameplay itself.
If I am not mistaken, it is an unfinished game.
This was a promo thing from the Portland Retro Gaming Expo in 2016. It comes with the chroma depth glasses, figurines, box art, screenshot, and a discount redeemable coupon when the game came out, but it's now been 10 years.
Right.
It is a shooter.
That's
a
cool.
Shooter.
No, that's awesome. But yeah, it's well, like I said, I've got, and that's, light gun games. We really, we lost one of our, we lost a couple, unfortunately, this last year, as far as developers for the homebrew community for the Intellivision. But we went from essentially having 4 in progress games for light gun support that basically just became 1 overnight. And that was a real shame. So that was one of my reasons, kind of an added motivation for me to get back to, learning how to program for it, so I could make some light gun games to take advantage of the, the NTNS capability.
We need some good original homebrew games.
Right. I'm Mike. I'm with you 100%. I am not ports are great, but I don't.
Yep.
I want to see original games. I already have the systems that have those games, and they're almost always better on those other systems. So I don't want to see them on my system. I want to see new things.
It's not that I don't want to see them. I just think a healthy homebrew community is one that has a good amount of originality. I do think, and I get a lot of flack for saying that about ports, but I do think 2025 was a lot better than 2024 was.
Right. I remember watching your reviews and stuff. I agree.
I like a mix of all of them.
Yeah, I mean,
you always want a mix.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to say that ports are bad. I mean, that's not the case. But I'm just saying, I just really, if the whole year was flooded with nothing but ports, I'd be a little disappointed with that, because it's just like, unless the games are really great. Now there are some fantastic, where like the Super Mario port's great, and that was a really fun one to. I finally got to play it. I actually hadn't played it for a while, because I don't really buy cartridges. I'm a ROM guy, so which has also been kind of the it's like the cool thing about the Sprint is that that really did open up the demand for publishers to reconsider their maybe no ROM policies that they've had up till now, or at least fewer ROMs. So I mean, again, I really also hope, of course, that our community doesn't become a bunch of pirates and just basically distribute all the ROMs and sales that way too.
That's definitely a concern. And
it didn't work out for the Amiga, so I'm optimistic, because I believe that we're all a bunch of guys now in our middle, we're all middle-aged dudes for the most part, and then ladies who are here who actually have some disposable income, versus when we were all 15-year-old and we were having our Amiga systems and everyone's pirating games because none of us could afford to buy all these things. So it became a kind of a poor kids thing. So I'd like to think that most people who are actually wanting to play homebrew games are actually able to spend $5 or $10, give or take whatever, to buy a game from a developer. So,
and Mr. Baseman, I'm renaming you Mr. Ed. Anybody who knows.
But no, I mean, you're exactly right there. I mean, when it comes to the ROMs, and we've had discussions about this before. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I go back to Champ Games. Champ Games sells their ROMs, and to my knowledge, there doesn't seem to be an issue with a whole bunch of piracy of his product. And again, there's ways as a programmer you can tell where it came from. So I mean, you can code things to find that out. And I don't know. I think to your point is like people that really enjoy the homebrew community and want to see it thrive, they're going to put the money into it. And the people that were going to quote unquote pirate it possibly, unfortunately, was probably never going to buy it to begin with.
And the people in the community are going to support it so the games keep happening.
Yeah, and
correct.
I think the key is making sure it's kind of like iTunes, right? Like when Napster was a thing, we all were downloading MP3s left and right because it was easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But iTunes came along, and actually, basically, one thing that Apple had right was they made a store where it's easy to buy a song for 99 cents. It wasn't a big purchase. You didn't moan and groan if you didn't like the song, but you could buy every song you wanted to buy for an affordable price, and it was convenient. I'd like to think that eventually Atari figures out a way to create, like, that's one thing about the Sprint I was a little surprised about, but I do understand why they didn't. It's just almost like why there wasn't like a built-in store built into the system. But I understand the infrastructure it would have taken for them to implement that, and the wireless and all that other stuff would have added a layer of complexity that was out of scope for what they had for the Sprint. But maybe the Sprint 2 will come along and it will become an integrated store where you can actually just buy ROMs directly through them as a publisher. And I think Atari would find that more appealing too, because they can be kind of gatekeepers as well, like the Apple Store, or the App Store, something to that effect. So,
but in ways you can technically, I mean, I don't think it's any secret. I mean, you could technically do that already with the Sprint. I mean, if a developer, no. I mean, if they wanted to put their games on a USB stick, I mean, they could have it set up to where you could plug it into the back of the Sprint and be able to use it. So, so again, I think the opportunity's there. I just hope they go through. Yeah. I mean, I just hope, to what you said, I hope homebrew developers, take advantage of that, because I think we'll all agree that, these other consoles are, they're not getting any younger, and televisions are becoming even harder, to find stuff in good working condition, especially, original controllers and stuff.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
So to have an opportunity like the Sprint, I think is a good thing. Would we have all loved to see a cartridge slot on it? Of course we would have. However, I mean, but for what it is, it's really good. And I'm with you, Caleb. Like, I do buy homebrew stuff, and I do that pretty regularly. However, it is hard to sometimes jump into a game that you can only get physical for $70 or $80.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's like, man, that's a gamble. Like, you could spend $70-$80 on it, and then you end up hating it, which is also why I think sometimes people go for ports, because, at the end of the day, it's a safer purchase.
Right. As a developer, I mean, typically, if they like I have a game design background myself. I did game development for like iOS, Android, and a bunch of different platforms for about 10 years. So I did game design and all stuff. But I think a lot of, programmers are typically they're more engineer minded, right? They're not necessarily, they don't have the experience of how to make game balance and all the other things like that. So you're right. If you take a good game, and then you can just take what already has been figured out and just transfer it over, you're more likely, and also you're more likely to be successful, because like Time Pilot or you name it, right? Any of these games that get brought, I'm not sure that was actually a port or not. Was there an original? There was an original Time Pilot, wasn't there?
Oh yes, absolutely.
But then there was an improved port, though. But then an improved port came out, correct? Is that right? That there actually is a homebrew, like a modern version of
I know there's a homebrew on ColecoVision, but
Television has one.
There's a ColecoVision homebrew. There's an Intellivision homebrew.
Yeah,
it was originally on the 2600.
Right. but it's like, so you bring a game like that, that's going to be a game that's, you can just apply and it'll work out well. But if you make a new game and you have to make it from scratch, then there's always that chance that what if people don't like it, and you've invested all this time to make this new idea. So there you go. All right, then that's the homebrew?
Actually,
that's homebrew.
Yeah,
okay. That's a homebrew.
Oh, so yeah, so that's it makes sense too, for sure, about that. Like, just rather than take a chance on an idea for a game that you feel like isn't very interesting or whatever, but versus a well-known popular game. So that's good.
So can we get a scoop? Are there any specific games that you like? Pierre is asking, when will you be making your first Intellivision game? And I imagine it's going to be a process because it is your first.
Yeah.
But
right.
Do you have the concept set on the game that you're?
Well, a couple. I've got basically. Okay, so I've got a few. So one is of course, if everyone's been on my website and played the little 8-bit widget game that's built in there, Space Mantis. I'm looking to probably try to port that game. Since I've got again my own game, I'm going to bring over to the Intellivision and see what I could do just to make it do the same stuff, right? Like I know how to make that game, so I'm using that as my own, like Flappy Bird. It's like a Hello World.
Yeah,
that would be even a paid. That's like a free game because that's almost like marketing. It's like advertising my logo. So I'm like, you can just enjoy it if you like the game, that kind of thing. So, but yeah. So to the other question, there's a few things I've had in mind. There's one that I've wanted to make for a long time, actually. It's funny. So what's that new triple action game that just came out? Right? Is that you just did a review for it, didn't you, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. So
that was with the A-Team intro.
So the game, this one of the games that's on there, that the highway game with the truck.
Yeah,
so
the Mad Max.
I actually had a game that I've been working on that I came up with like in 2006, and over the years I've made numerous iterations of it on everything from Flash to Unity but never could get the game done. But basically, it would be similar to that game, but it's a vertical version. Think of it more like Bump and Jump. But the idea of the game was you had vehicles coming up, and it's a tower defense game essentially, where you actually have essentially turrets. That game it's very similar to that one, but his is going across the road, kind of like where there was a game called Convoy that came out at one point years back. That was kind of like I think that was a Kickstarter game or something.
Okay.
But anyway, that was one game I did want to do, but I probably will put that on the back burner, given that game is so similar to what I was kind of already going to make. And anyway, so there's another one though. It's called iKillBot, and the gist of it is that you're in a mall. It's the future. You're basically a birthday bot that works at like a Chuck E. Cheese of sorts, right? And your job is just to go around delivering pizzas and stuff, but you don't have arms as a robot. But you really do wish as a robot you did have arms. So an evil scientist lays some arms available that are basically
Is this like a Five Nights at Freddy's prequel?
Well, not to get too into a side story here, but basically years ago, probably 2014, there was this thing called the Molyneux Game Jam. And essentially there was some guy called, it was like a faux Peter Molyneux Twitter account. And he would just throw out these random ideas for games that were just crazy combinations. And one of them was you're a good person, but you've got psychotic arms that want to kill things. Okay. So the gist of the story, it was a game jam. It was like one of those 48-hour game jams where you have to make a game in 48 hours from start to finish. And so I came up with this idea called iKillBot. And the idea essentially is that you're a good robot, but you have these arms that you took, which they want to kill people. They're attached to you. So the way it works in the game mechanics is, imagine you're in a mall full of mazes of hallways and stuff, right? And there are kids that see you. And because you're all dressed up like a happy, fun clown, they're attracted to you. They want to come see the happy, fun bot, okay? What you can do, though, from a game mechanic is you can detach the arms from you. So you obviously don't kill the kids as they come up to you. Because, of course, you're following the 3 robotic laws of safety. You can't let humans get harmed. So the idea...
I love that we're getting into Asimov here and everything. Okay, keep going.
So the robot arms, once detached, will claw their way towards the nearest kid or civilian if you don't do something to pick them up and grab them and keep moving them around. So the object of the game is essentially to get the killer arms out of the mall without killing anybody, and essentially by navigating through all these different mazes and such, or these little hallways. So almost like something like to the effect of like Venture, right? For like Adventure for the 2600. You got all these little hallways and stuff that you've got to navigate through.
So
all
Dr. Scott wouldn't
moms
like
and
it.
dads and kids interacting with you and stuff. So you got to protect all those people. You can also push the kids out of the way gently. You can basically scoot them as long as the arms aren't attached to you at the time. So it's kind of a strategy game of managing the danger and the good guys and all that kind of stuff. So that's one. Another, of course, is not Robotron, but I'm still to this day, like, of course, I got the coupler with the 2 discs. I'm like, why hasn't anyone made Robotron yet? But I won't make Robotron, but I'd like to make a dual D-pad move and shoot type game with 2 discs. That's basically, I don't have the full details worked out on it, but I want to use that game mechanic. Smash TV, what have you. Something like that. So and then of course light gun games. I was a big fan of Gumshoe. If you guys remember Gumshoe for the NES, I always thought that was kind of cool how they kind of incorporated a platformer with the shooting light gun aspect. So I've always been kind of looking at or something to the effect of, like, imagine you hold the controller with one hand.
We need a light gun controller.
That's what I'm saying.
Coupler.
Right, and that's a potential coupler. Is it like you could imagine attaching like to the Zapper a Nintendo controller, so you can basically move and shoot. Kind of like with the PlayStation game controller. I think those guns actually have those little D-pads on them, right? Like
I know on the Nintendo Wii, they had like these plastic things that you could put nunchuck in and so you could kind
of move and shoot. So definitely something that would combine the idea of using your joystick to move and you're shooting at the same time. And of course, since the NES or the NTNS supports dual zappers, I'm also looking at games that might actually take advantage of 2 guns together. So it's almost like a John Wick type situation where you actually have to use like a certain gun, almost like Beat Saber, the way you can only shoot certain things with certain, like you have to cut the blue boxes with the blue blade and the red boxes with the red blade. So anyway, it's a lot of fun ideas I'm trying to kick around and stuff, but I got to wrap my head around the stuff. So first I got to see the Matrix before I can, affect the Matrix. So
okay, the whole like, you're a good robot, but your arms want to kill people and they're evil. I love, if I ever strangle somebody and like kill them, that's going to be my defense. My arms are evil. It's not me.
It's not me, exactly.
I'm just going to address really quick. Crypto Coffee here asks, what are some games from indie devs that push the limits of the Intellivision? Star Mercenary pushes those limits. I think Anthropomorphic Force pushes that limit.
Absolutely. I can't wait to play that one. That's I've got
Anthropomorphic Force is awesome. And looking at, like, I watched DJC, he played like an early demo of AF2. They took a lot of my ideas because Willie had actually asked, what are your ideas? They didn't take all of them, but they took some of them, and I'm really looking forward to that.
But
awesome. Basically anything from the Electronite games programmed by Oscar Kenneth, Kai Magazine, all of them are super impressive. And there are definitely other ones. There's some from Carlos Madruga that are really impressive. Operation Cloudfire is a pretty impressive one. Police Avenue Redux, I think at the time. No, actually, no. The Ghostbusters Ultimate Edition is the biggest game. Police Avenue Redux really pushed that limit as well. And what's the other one that Infiltrator and Pandora Incident are?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out Pandora Incident too. That's another one that's what I love so much about the fact that the Intellivision has the JLP standard available, that we can leverage that as developers, because of course being able to save your game state really opens up a lot of possibilities, right? Because now you can create deeper games with more depth and save your progress, as opposed to no one wants to play a game that you have to spend 3 hours to beat and you can't turn your machine off. It's like we need to be able to pause and come back and explore and just that, so it really is nice. It's just like having like a game like the Legend of Zelda, right? That you really need to have a save state for that game. People couldn't beat that game off a single sitting. So again, as the Intellivision community, we're very lucky to have that kind of technology available for us. Bank switching, which and a more increased RAM, all those things that the JLP standard allows is a big boon to letting us be more creative and push the limits more than what they could back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to touch on, so for those of you watching, who are familiar with the IntelliPort and the IntiNES. Sorry, the IntiPort and the IntiNES. I keep calling the IntelliPort.
Yeah, it's all right. Interchangeable.
Yes, and here I'll make you. There you go. So these are adapters. Now we are going to do a future episode and have your partner Russell on.
Yep.
And talk more in depth about these. But do you want to give us just a brief kind of overview of what these two items are? And I do have videos coming on them.
No worries. Yeah. So in short, the IntiPort is effectively an adapter that goes into the cartridge slot, just like the IntelliVoice. So it's a pass-through, so cartridges go on one side. It works with all the hardware. It works with all the original systems. It effectively gives you 2 additional joystick ports that are compatible with all Intellivision controllers. So Intellivision 2, Sears, all of the BD Retro Mod stuff, all of the controllers will work, including the Intellivision flashback controllers as well. There's a switch on the back that lets you include compatibility. Yes, obviously Hugo Games stuff.
Yes, and for anybody wanting to buy anything from OG Hugo, MGG as your code will get you $5 off anything in his store.
Nice. Yeah, so that's what that one does in short. It also gives you the ability to switch to players 3 and 4. So if you want to play a homebrew game, for example, like Fubar, and there's actually a ROM hack available, so you would only have to have the ECS. So you can actually play Fubar 4-player, 4 controllers with the regular Intellivision and the IntiPort. And then NES works with the LTO. We've tested it with the back bit. I think, Casey, did you try it with the cuddle cart? I think you did. I think you tested it at one point. It worked. So we've had no problems with that. The LTO did take some work, but I'll let Russ speak to that one in the episode as far as we really had to kind of bust our butts to make the LTO work. And I was this close to saying, you know what, I don't care. I don't own
I kept pushing because we needed it to work.
You need the LTO to work.
But I don't think I guess I don't have it here now. I finally did but I was thank you to DZJ though for actually being kind enough to trade me a LTO for an I think it was an IntiPort and I think it was the IntiPort or IntiNES. I forget why I traded him, but that was very kind of him. It was actually new, and though I haven't even opened it yet. It's almost like I'm not going to do it until I absolutely have to, and I don't mind. It's like I'm not a collector guy, and I will keep it. I will never sell it. It's not that. But my point is just, it is like a thing. And here's the thing about, I have a back bit and I'm a Mac user. And I know that the LTO requires a PC only program to interact with it. So it's just the hassle of having to get into it. It's also my apprehension about it, but at least it's nice that we have one because 1980 Gamer, Gene was super kind to loan us his LTO during the development of it. That we could actually get it tested because everyone was so concerned. They only had their only one, and they know that if they lose it or it got broken, it's irreplaceable. So Gene was super kind to help us out there. Obviously, Casey was super instrumental in actually testing a lot of this for us to actually give us a, but again, we'll definitely talk more about that in the specific episode about that. So moving on to the IntiNES. So the IntiNES is essentially the same idea. It's a pass-through cartridge port, but it gives you 2 NES ports. And basically it works with all of the original Nintendo controllers. And it also supports the Zapper. So you can actually play light gun games. And there is actually Duck Hunter now that's available that you can buy through Intellivision Collector.
Yeah.
Right. And so Luke has that available for sale. It's a great game. We added support not just for 1 light gun, but up to 4 light guns. And we actually had a demo at PRGE that actually allowed us to have 4 people shooting at the same CRT at the same time, through a daisy chain approach like this. So
I actually played some 2-player duck hunt against a few guys, including Mike the Gaming Road Warrior, who we discovered, despite being former military, was a terrible shot because I mopped the floor with them. But you've got your 2 ducks, and you're both shooting,
right?
And it recognizes who shot what, and it's
there was this prototype, and this is so other ideas of games that came to mind too. Is that, do you guys remember the game Empire City, 1942? I think it was. Basically, it was a early 90s, late 80s first-person shooter. Basically, imagine you're in like New York City, and you have a whole scene that you move a joystick around, and you have a target that just moves around the screen, and the background goes. And the idea is that various mobsters would pop up on the screen, and you have like 3 seconds to find them and then shoot them. or you had to hit a duck button, which would waste a bullet to buy yourself a little more time to hunt around and find that target. So anyway, so that was we lost Casey, I guess, right? He dropped.
Well, I think he's just maybe somebody's coming and talking to
sure.
him.
But anyway, that's another great example of a game. So imagine you have a D-pad that you hold or whatever, one controller in one hand, and then you're moving around a target environment. What's that?
Oh, okay. So Tofu asked, is there a way to have a light gun with an HDMI TV?
No, at this time,
not within television.
Right. Russ and I have talked about trying to figure out a way to make that a yes, but right now, as it stands, it is not possible. Also, for anyone who might be curious about trying to do it with the Sprint, so timing is extremely important with light guns. Okay, these things are clocking 60 frames per second. Okay, and it is very precise. And the issue is that while the Sprint is certainly a fine emulator, it is emulation. There are milliseconds of latency from that. Then you have the potential latency of the television itself. Even in gaming mode, there is still some latency. And once you get over a certain threshold of latency, it just becomes unattainable. You know what I'm saying? So you absolutely need, and that's what's going on with the Intel, even with the composite mod, which is I was very relieved because all of my Intellivisions are composite modded. So I was very grateful that the light gun games still work with those composite mods, that those didn't introduce any noticeable latency. They were very much absolutely real time. So at this time, HDMI light gun gaming is just not possible. It would require CRT. But honestly, if you really want a CRT, you don't have to buy one. If you're patient, just look on your local Facebook marketplace. It's not. I've had two 32-inch televisions and a 27-inch, all free. Never paid for any of them. They're getting harder to find, obviously, but if you're just look on Facebook Marketplace, I almost promise you within a week, you're going to find somebody who's giving away a TV. And again, even a 20-inch television is all you need. You could use a 13-inch. It doesn't even matter. Obviously, the bigger screen is going to be just a bigger experience. I love my 32.
You're telling us that size doesn't matter.
And not for this stud, but yeah. So honestly, it is good. It's I find it useful for just I like the larger screen and stuff, but you can use a 20-inch television, which is very manageable. It's not even that heavy to keep one of those around or taking up much space. So
I do think if you were to try to do a light gun game on an HDMI TV with something like the Intellivision, you would have to take a completely different approach. You would have to almost go like the Wii approach, where you've got something that tells you where you're pointing.
Right, but then you have to talk to the Intellivision, and
that's where it gets really difficult.
Back to it. Now,
so if we get an IntiNES with a wire coming out to a little Wii monitor that's then feeding the
I mean, it's still going to be because
however,
I mean,
there is one approach that we've been looking into, and Russ and I talked about this is the FPGA approach. If we ever were able to, and Russ and I have discussed this as well, about the idea of making an FPGA and television type of a system, something more ambitious, it would be more ambitious than that, but it's a lot more work, it's a lot more risk, it's a lot more money, it's just the whole thing. So it's all up to do with that, maybe a Kickstarter, I don't know, but bottom line is here's what's possible.
Casey will fund it for you,
right? Because FPGA.
Be careful crowdfunding anything like that.
What's that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I would not get into the crowdfunding.
Yeah, don't do the crowdfunding. Anything with associated with the television and crowdfunding probably isn't going to do well.
Amico, of course.
But Casey is going to buy me one, so by all means, fund whichever one.
No, I agree.
He says he'll buy 5. One of those is for me.
That either. But yeah, so there we had considered it. We have the capability of doing it, but it's just a lot of work, and it would just be really out there. Really, my intention was to actually make something more like, think of it as more like a modular system, where it'd be like you have your core system that's your Mr. Box, but rather than it have imagine cartridge ports that you could actually add on modules that would offer different custom interface plugs. So you have an actual Intellivision plug for an actual Intellivision cartridge that would offer 100% compatibility because it's FPGA, it's not emulation, it's not whatever, right? But then you could have a daisy chain where you could have, I'm a Coleco fan, an Odyssey fan, and an Intellivision fan. You could basically collect a series of daisy chained cartridge ports that would go in, make it, real. But anyway,
I've always said my ideal FPGA system would be basically anything with a DB9 port. You could have an Odyssey 2 cartridge slot,
right.
7800, which is backwards compatible with 2600.
I mean, the
Intellivision,
3DO,
ColecoVision.
I mean, like there's a lot of systems, right? A lot of systems. Vectrex used it. Sega Master System, Sega Genesis. 2600, 7800. Coleco. I mean, it goes on and on, right? The Commodore 64, the Amiga. I mean, all these different systems had the DB9 port. So, so that was kind of our thoughts on that. But again, it's just one of those things. There's there's only so much time in the day, and we all have day jobs and everything else. So it's one of those things where we have to kind of spend our spare time. So
you just have to do like Mike and don't sleep half the week.
Yeah,
I know, right? 80 hours,
we were talking in Casey's chat yesterday how it's not the years, it's the miles, and I got a lot of miles because I live the way I do.
Oh man!
So with your IntiNES, so with the NES controllers, does that work on any Intellivision game, or does it have to be a homebrew game that's specifically designed for?
Right, great question. So it works with all the Nintendo control or Intellivision games, no problem. Of course, a game that, like say, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons requires the number pad. Won't work with that. However, there you go. So
I've got one of those. Yeah, right. Here, I'll bring that.
NTT combined with that adapter, which we also provide and sell optionally, allows you to use the NTT as well as the Famicom HVC controller. So those are basically, and those will be full. We even have dual action, so you actually there's a dual action mode, so you can actually shoot and move at the same time as in Player 1 and Player 2. It also supports all the like Street Fighter joysticks and all those ones that are like all the buttons. Now we were at kind of a crossroads. We did not enable the ability to actually utilize all of the buttons in like a new game. For example, like let's take a homebrew. Let's just take the Super Nintendo controller, right? It's got your 4 main buttons, 6 total buttons so basically 8 buttons and a joystick, right? We could have enabled the ability to make all of those buttons accessible to a future homebrew game, but the amount of work it would take, and it would require new games to be written to take advantage of it. So if we wanted to have Street Fighter 2 on the Intellivision, for example, that's truly that, it would have taken some additional work, and we decided that we just felt like the chances of the homebrew community embracing that and making a bunch of games to utilize it seemed highly unlikely. So we're like,
the problem with it being is that the majority of Intellivision players are not going to have that. Right. So you can't really program a game for something that only a few people have.
It's like Rob. It's like Rob for the NES, right? There was the Dynamite or whatever, Gyromite, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like one game for that piece of plastic, nothing else ever came out to take advantage of that.
And it was easier to just have the second controller there and press the buttons.
Right. Which is kind of fun. I actually make a coupler. I have a coupler for the Nintendo controller, and that's one of the things I put in the description. Is like, you want to play Gyromite by yourself, it'll hold the 2 controllers together so you can actually access the buttons easier. Just rotate it 90 degrees, and there you go. So that's another thing. What else is there? I mean, there's a bunch of, and we also have the ability to actually change the button orientations through a combination of button presses. I just made a video that's going to be a basic walkthrough of the core features of the NTNES and the NT port, but I'm going to make a in-depth second video for the NTNES that goes into all the advanced features, because you can actually remap the buttons to be different orientations because here's what happened. The story is that we went to PRGE, we're showing off the NTNES, and Rev loans us Super Mario Brothers to play, because it's like, hey, why not play Mario Brothers on an original NES controller on your Intellivision, right? But what we learned is that the way we had defaulted all the buttons to land, they were reversed. The jump and the run were backwards. No good. So
you can't play Mario like that.
And something I learned is that we all know there's 3 fire buttons on the Intellivision, right? There's the left and the right, and there's the top 2. What I did not know, and this is an interesting fact, is that I think I learned this from Lathe 26, Chris, I believe. He was telling me, so the Intellivision knows how to detect any 2 buttons being pressed at the same time, but then if you press, that's it. So it's something like, it basically doesn't know. I can't think of it now. I'm getting mixed. But basically, I know it's like if you press more than 2 buttons, if you press 2 buttons, it doesn't know which of the 3 are being pressed at that point. That's what it is. It knows any one of the buttons being pressed at any given moment, But as soon as you press 2 at the same time, as far as it's concerned, any of the 3 are being pressed. So this is a tricky situation for the run and jump stuff that we all love to do in Mario. We know you kind of would ride the run button, right? That's how I would play it. I rest my thumb on the thing and I kind of jump with the bottom of my thumb.
Yeah.
Well, we had to fix 2 things. One, we didn't code it properly to really, and this is why you need to do that update. Is that we fixed that too? Which again, public service announcement again. If anyone here watching this video bought one of the NTNSs at PRGE, we have made a firmware update since then that we want to offer for free for everyone. We pay shipping and everything. We just need you to send it to us so we can flash it, and then send it back to you and stuff. So anyway, but that's what so because we realized though that the buttons were reversed, we came up with a really awesome mode where by holding multiple buttons down in a certain combination, you can then press up, down, left, or right, and it will actually change the mapping of all the buttons to different kinds of configurations, to whatever people prefer. So so we've got some pretty fun things that were added to the NTNS on that front as well. So yeah.
That's very cool. And S. Ramirez says we need a Rob coupler. Just two of them.
That's funny.
Well, I really like this, like kind of seeing your evolution where, like I said, I first heard about you. It was a 3D printed coupler for the Odyssey 2.
Right.
And then, you expand to these converters and these MCPs, like the dust cover things, couplers for like combinations you would never think of. And just like, yes, there's a coupler for that. Yes, there's a coupler for that. It's incredible. And then of course the IntelliPort, the IntiPort and the IntiNES, which we will have another episode to talk about with Russ, who's going to go into all the sordid details, which is it's a type of show that, a lot of people, if you're just a surface guy, you're like, oh, this isn't exciting, but this is actually really fascinating. That part of it, the engineering part of it.
Right. Well, and it's so incredible because the community is so great, because here's the thing. So the light gun thing, so Russ was instrumental in engineering the actual thing, making the board and coming up with all that stuff. But it's funny how it just starts out as a conversation in Atari age where I was like, I love light gun games. I've always been a fan of that. I love I've got kind of all of those. I got the 3DO version. I just always liked light gun games. So I was always just like, it's like my first question was like, on Atari age was like, can the Intellivision have a light gun? Is it possible? Because my thought was, let's make our own, like not try to use the zapper. Let's just make one. And, and that was fine. And the answer was basically it should work. No one had done it before, but it seemed possible because of the hardware and the timing and the way it was working. Because, certain systems like the Odyssey, the way the Odyssey 2's chips work, there's a lot of things you can't do with the Odyssey 2, like chasing the line like you can with 2600, where it really limits its capabilities as far as its graphical performance, where we've all kind of figured out these tricks with some of the later systems, even in the Intellivision and the Atari 2600 and stuff. But the Odyssey kind of got hamstrung by some things that actually make it easier as a developer to make games for it, also prevented it from becoming more hijacked and high performance. But that kind of evolved into a thing where it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. It is possible. So let's make one. So Russ and I started talking about that idea, and it just kind of evolved and turned into a thing where it's like, now we've got this thing that actually, and it's like, it made sense, like rather than us make our own light gun where we got to get into measuring optics and 3D printing all these things and stuff. It's like, let's just use a zapper. They're already great devices,
They're everywhere.
And they're plentiful.
They're easy to come by. It's like, why reinvent the wheel? Just make something that can use those things. So, and that's another great. And then another question was, this is what started the NTNS. I learned, a year or whatever, something ago, that the IntelliVoice all these years had this port inside of it that was hidden by the Mattel Intellivision thing that you open it up. They stopped putting it on some of the later ones, but a lot of them have it. And it turns out that Mattel planned on making a wireless controller system for that. And it was going to go in, plug in the top of the IntelliPort or the IntelliVoice. And I was like, that's awesome. So that got me thinking, if you can plug that, if they designed that to be possible, then that must have meant that the engineers knew it was possible to send controller signals through the cartridge port to control the system. But no one had done it yet. It was it should work. But then there was also worry of like, will it fry the electronics? Is it a passive signal? How do we make sure we don't overload the thing and blow a chip or something? So,
well, you make sure by getting Casey to test it.
Well, yeah.
He's got plenty of spare Intellivisions.
But and Russell talked about this too in the other video. But we were very lucky. It basically just worked like right off the bat. He did his prototyping, he did his boards and stuff, and click, boom, it was working. Nothing fried, nothing blew up. It all worked healthy, and it's so. But again, these were all kind of like questions that could be posed to the larger community because I don't know this stuff, until we talk to people who do, and then you run with that for a while until you come up with something that either works or doesn't. So that's what these products ends up becoming. And I'm just and to the point, Mark, we talked about before about the idea of making new games. That's why I'm such a fan of the idea of like the couplers and fusions of different, like I make a coupler that's a Pong controller and a joystick. So basically you can imagine a game like this. Well, here's a good example, right? So with this controller, now that you've got one controller that has a top button and this, you can now play Battlezone, right?
Yep.
Proper Battlezone with 2 treads as opposed to the original one. It was a single joystick. So this opens up all kinds of interesting possibilities for new gameplay. So now you can make games that weren't possible before, but at the same time, it's not like you have to buy a whole bunch of new hardware to do it either. It's the idea.
Yeah, it's a $5-10 coupler. Right.
Just kind of combine some things you've already got probably, or at least if not, you can source pretty easily, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I really just love the idea of making controller options that open up new gameplay possibilities. I mean, just imagine, because that's what's so cool with the idea with the Intellivision, having 2 of these together. Oh,
put your camera again.
Can you?
Yes, he blew himself up.
Yeah. Can you still hear me though? Yeah.
Yes, we can still hear you.
All right, let me try to reset it real fast. I think I bumped it loose when I was getting excited there.
I've done that before. I was like,
all right.
I was complaining about something, and I remember I hit the desk, and the cable must have gotten loose.
Let me see if I can.
That's what happened. That's what happened on my show too.
His device is not connected now.
He may have to reboot.
No, I think he's still in the.
Hey, I'm alive! I'm alive.
Woohoo!
Okay, so yes. Anyway, but the point was that
he's in the dark, but he's alive.
So yeah, so for example, like one of my favorite arcade games of all time was Discs of Tron. I always loved that arcade cabinet game because you had the joystick and you had the dial, and you could basically navigate, rotate, and then you could aim. So I've always thought it'd be great to make a homebrew of that, but of course you need the dial and you need a joystick. So that's what got me making a coupler that would combine basically something like this guy. Right, so you have a fire button,
with a paddle controller,
and you have a dial, or Akari Warriors, for example. And I mean, maybe not a port of that because that had grenades and shooting, but at least imagine a game now you can play a tank or on foot, and you're a soldier shooting around. But now you've got a dial, so you can do 360.
Like this guy right here.
Right, exactly. Which is kind of funny too. So speaking of Champ Games earlier, we were talking about ROMs and stuff. So, actually, John lives in Connecticut, so he's not far from me, and I had just come up with that as just kind of like my own little, crazy widget that has no game for it. It's like almost like if you make it, will they code kind of a thing, right? So, but then Champ had just come up with Turbo for the Atari 2600, and they make these really great high quality ports, and their game supported the use of a dial and the use of a joystick for gear shifting. So it turned out this worked out to be a great coupler for the purpose of playing Turbo in a unique way, where now you can actually have a steering wheel and a joystick for shifting gears. So I think that would be awesome.
And those were available on PRD.
Mad Planets, right. So it absolutely, Mad Planets would be a great example of that too. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Tempest, and you can imagine just Tempest doesn't need it. It's just a dial, but and that's the other thing. So speaking of future products, it's kind of like one of those things where we're, it's always a question of like how deep is the well, and how many people would really want to buy a thing. But the next sort of NT product that we've talked about making would be basically something that addresses the 2600 / maybe 700 / Sega Master System / Genesis, right? But basically, imagine a controller that actually support analog actual dials from the Pong paddles. So the Intellivision could finally have an honest to God analog back and forth paddle for that really tight, responsive turning. So that's one of the things I'd love to see made at some point. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he had one of those.
Yeah,
actually, I need to follow up with him about that.
He actually had a full-on steering wheel there too.
Did he?
Yeah,
that's cool. It was interesting too. Actually, I saw that. I guess Atari, when they released something, they did a kind of cool thing where they used a box. The box could be a coupler of sorts for their Robotron, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they had like the plastic insert of the box you could put two controllers in.
Yeah. Which I was like, that's clever. I thought at first it was champ.
It was flimsy, but it was clever.
What's that?
It was very flimsy, but it was clever.
Yeah, it's better than taping it to your desk or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I like to think my couplers are a step above that. But I get it. You know what I'm saying? It's whatever it takes. Again, I'm just. It's all about making things. It's just like the couplers for, the Intellivisions. I know that the Sprint you can do the scripts and stuff. If you want to get into hacking it to do a dual action on a single controller. But, if you don't get into that stuff and just want it to work without it, then you have an option at least. But I'm all for just anything that can allow new gameplay possibilities. I think it makes it really exciting to make our systems that we love and the graphics we love and the sounds and all the flaws and limitations of them, but at the same time trying something kind of fun and new and kind of make it fresh again.
Yeah, and get some new game styles that we haven't been playing on the Intellivision. You make them and then something else comes out and we get to try something new.
Right. And the question, the thing about Spy Hunter, I made a coupler for the Spy Hunter one just because of the rotation of the way they did it. They had the two joysticks, so the fire buttons are facing each other. And I tried to make one coupler to do both, but it was the way I was doing it at the time. It was just not really practical or feasible to get them to both be good. It was like you get mediocre for both. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make a dedicated one for the Spy Hunter fanatics out there that really want the best experience. Because when I saw they were like $80 on eBay, I was like, for one of those couplers, I was like, that's not right. And I try to make a point of supporting all the products I make. So I've been making things for a couple of years now, and I kind of make them to order. I don't keep a bunch of stuff in stock all the time, so I just keep the files around, and if someone wants one, I can whip it up and print it. And
well, on worst case scenario, like when it comes to the stuff that you make, if you decided one day, I don't want to do this anymore, you just, your Etsy shop now has you can buy the STL.
Right.
And print your own.
Do something like that. I've thought about that. It's one of those things. It's kind of like, as much as I'm, it sounds hypocritical because like, I'm a ROM guy and I buy ROMs and I know ROMs get pirated, but I'm like, I can't bring myself to selling STLs. I'm just like, no. People ask, and I'm just like, sorry, I don't want to do that. Once I open that box, it's out there. You just never know what happens to it.
I suggest not opening that box until you're done making.
Right.
Like,
but,
you don't want to make them anymore.
I kind of get a point that it is like a kind of a thing. Like maybe after a thing's been out for a couple of years, it's like, sure, just put it out there for sale at that point, because it's almost like a legacy. It's like legacy stuff,
Yeah. Just so that it doesn't disappear.
Yeah. I agree. To some point that would definitely be. I agree. I mean, I feel like the same way. If I'm not selling it, I'm going to make it available, for sure. Because, it's, and I've done that before for people. It's like, I'll make things for people that they want, something like a one-off. But yeah, honestly, it's a lot of it's driven by requests. Another thing I need to work on, I've been talking about doing it for probably over a year now, is an adapter kit for the Odyssey 2. Basically, a lot of the later Odyssey 2s came out with wired controllers. So I've got a wired system. I bought an extra one just to have it, but I'm basically going to be like an adapter kit where you do have to open up the Odyssey 2, but basically just unplug the ports, and then you have a thing hanging out the back of it. It'll be a male on the back of it, and then an accompanying coupler enclosure that would go around the end of your actual now orphaned controllers to turn them back into female, so they can then plug in and you can keep using them. So, that kind of something to that effect.
Yeah, I've done the adapter for that. But I've not done it the other way around for the joystick part after taking. Right,
that's kind of that. I've got a few people who've asked about it, I need to get back to it. It's been like just always like something else is always seems like, because there's something about having to to make that one. I think part of it too is the Odyssey 2 community. As much as I love it, I love the Odyssey 2. It's such a small community, and it's like the amount of work that's going to go into it. I'm like, how many people are actually going to buy this thing? And I'm just trying to hedge my bets. And it's like I'm not making a living doing this, but I'm still trying to make it worth my time. And so, things that are going to be like, the amount of work for that one. It's one thing to make a coupler. I can do that probably nowadays in an evening. And it's like, I don't mind if I sell 2 of a thing, it's like, whatever. It's like, I broke even, I paid for the controllers.
It's even like Brian here has mentioned stuff with the Tandy color computer. And it's like, yes, but you will have 2 sales.
Right.
Oh, no. I mean, like I said, I had a couple people. I mean, and you're exactly right. Like I do make some stuff for the Tandy. I've done a 2-button controller for it. And I've also done a paddle controller for it because it never really had one, and then I've done an adapter to be able to use Sega Master System controllers with it.
Right.
And again, I mean, I did it. It's there, but is it one of my top selling items?
Right.
Absolutely not. You know what I mean? It's there, but it's
fun
not...
too. I mean, there's a sense of satisfaction. I'm sure.
Oh no, there is.
Just looking back and you see your growing catalog, right? It's like, wow, I've made all this different stuff.
Oh no,
it's so funny. Like I made this one. I actually made it because I just came up with the idea, but then I learned that they used to make it back in the day. But this is actually the Leftinator. So basically, this is a thing that takes it so it takes the Atari 2600's joystick and makes it so it rotates at 90 degrees. So the fire button's on the right side. I'm left-handed. So when I was a kid, I always felt very awkward with it. Now, because I got used to it, now I just kind of, it's almost like you're just kind of twisting the whole thing anyway. It's not really like I'm doing this with my right hand as much as I'm kind of moving the whole thing. And my left hand is sort of resting on the fire button anyway. So I got used to it. But I thought for somebody who's left-handed who just wants to play it the right way, where the button is on the right side and the joystick's on the left side, that's the Leftinator. If you make it, we the community will buy. Well, let's see.
That's a yes and no. I mean, it really depends on the situation. It
also depends on the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's, I mean, generally speaking, though, it's like, the same thing as like this one. Like that's the like this is that one. Like this was a fun one too, because like I had to learn to get into like solutions. Like, so basically, one of the problems I ran into was that when I was using it to push because the Pong thing, when it goes in here, it's a side button, right? So I didn't want to lose access to the fire button, even though it's being fully enclosed, and it would be awkward to reach anyway. Even if it were somehow exposed, you'd have to really reach. So I came up with a little button idea to press down, but then I didn't know sometimes it would get lodged, right? Because it's just basically sliding plastic against plastic. It's just not that great. So I originally tried to source springs, but I was having a difficult time finding metal springs that were just the right diameter and strength and depth and all that other stuff. So I finally realized I was like, oh, I could use TPU, which is kind of like almost like a rubber type of 3D filament. So now it just becomes like this little like a little spring, just to give a little bit of lift to bring it back up again. But I'm trying to think of other fun stuff. So this is another one that's a community thing. So this right here, you guys all know this, just joystick, right?
Oh yeah.
So I love this thing. It's so cool. And I pretty much just kind of, actually now I have one. I actually bought the system because I needed to make sure that the 2600 MCP would actually fit it. But someone was basically wanting a replacement because they lost their thing. So I was like, I should probably do that. And I actually do have it's kind of cool. I don't have one readily available. Basically, I'm going to make a replacement for this for people. But what I did with do I have a Pong controller? No, I do have this one. So this is the Pong dial, right? But what I did is I put the 8-bit widget 8 on the center here, but I calibrate it in such a way that basically whenever you center it, the sideways is level. So you always know where 0 is now, rather than kind of wondering, am I this way or that way? It just offers a kind of a reference point. But so I'm making it, and also I put a little bit of like a TPU ring around it as well. So it just has a little bit of a grippy, kind of has a little soft edge to it as opposed to being hard plastic, just to kind of make a little, an easy little upgrade, for the original Pong thing. What else here? Okay. I'm trying to think if there's any other fun stuff to kind of show that's laying around here. Of course, I got my book.
Yes, okay. I have that book. It has been glanced and sits.
I gotta get back into it. It's I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. So some other things that are coming up I need to also finish. I made a 5200 replacement lid for the top part because, well, mine broke. I had a perfect 5200 with that nice plastic lid that lifted, and I foolishly gripped the whole. I was just holding the whole thing, pinching it with my iron hand to move it, and I didn't realize how brittle it was, and it just cracked right out of the thing. I was like, God damn it! I was like, this thing has been in great shape. I bought it. I got lucky. It was just like. Anyway, so I realized I really would like it to have the hinge again. So I found this really nice translucent dark gray material that'll be pretty close to what the original one was, which was kind of a translucent plastic rather than like a solid color. But I'm gonna design it in a way that basically you can just it's I don't know, what have I not done yet? I don't do benchies very much. I've avoided I don't make dragons. I think I've made like one of each of those in my life, but I just the stuff that everyone else makes a million of, I'm just like, yeah, it really is. In fact, that's the other thing. I shipped off my 7800 to Jesse to mod my 7800 with the composite mod and everything. Well, stupid me did not pack it very well, and it cracked in shipping, and I just, guys darn it. Anyway, Jesse, being the awesome guy that he is, managed to Franken fix it with another piece that he had laying around and a little bit of glue and everything. So it's good enough. I'm not a purist. It's okay. It's not like I care what it sells for it, but it was nice that he was able to get the power cord to be nice and firm and back to where it should be. So
yeah.
But yeah, so another fun thing that's coming up soon, but again, I got to get Rustin on this one because he's kind of helping me with it. Is essentially a 2600 docking station. We're going to be making a series of different docking stations for different systems that basically will be. So the 2600, one of the things I can't stand about the 2600's design, of course, is that the plugs were in the back, right, for the joysticks. Yeah. And of course, changing those things over time. These are 1970s consoles. It's brittle and potentially going to break. So the docking station is essentially, think of it as like a platform that's maybe like an inch or two high. It sits on top of it. It will have ports on the front of it, and then it'll have a couple of cables come out the back that plug permanently into the back, as well as power. So they'll have its own power supply. And I also want to add a little LED light so that when you turn the actual on-off switch of the Atari 2600, you'll actually get like a little power on indication, because when energy is flowing to it, that light will glow. Because of course we all know that the original 2600 didn't have any on-off light, which is a small benefit also of the NTNS and the NT port as well. We put power lights on those as well. So we all know the original Intellivisions, other than the Intellivision 3, didn't have any real power on indication, and the Intellivision 2. But you know what I'm saying, like the Sears, the 2609s, all of those had no power indication. So the NT port does give you that in the NTNS as well.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to talking with you and Russ about
it's
further into the IntelliPort I keep calling it IntelliPort, the NT port and the NTNS, as well as potential docking stations and other cool stuff. But we're already going a little over. Is there any last thing that you'd like to plug before we head off?
Let me just check my notes if there's anything. MCPs. Some other ones coming up soon. Also, some additional, for anyone who has a back bit, I'll be making some additional sleeves for some of the other boards I own, like the Odyssey 2. That's going to be a little tricky because there's the voice version, and then there's the non-voice version. That was another lesson learned. When I launched the original MCP for the Odyssey, I only tested it with my my voice module, because I have the voice module. So I forgot it even comes off. I'm just so used to seeing it on there. And then I sold it to some people, and they're like, "Hey, this doesn't fit." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, oh God, I didn't make it for that one. So I had to quickly come up with some solution for that. But again, I make mistakes. I've made some mistakes. S. Ramirez right there, he can attest to that. I just sent him a 5200 coupler when I meant to send him a 700 coupler. And I was like, you know what, just keep it. It's like I made a mistake. He's bought
at the end of the day,
so it's like he's earned it.
The way I have always viewed it is that nobody's perfect, but when you make a mistake, if you fix it, or if you make it good, that is the closest to perfect that anybody can ever expect.
Honestly, I've been very thankful that the community in general has been very patient with that kind of stuff. When I launched the 2600 MCP, that was a real fiasco, because I had no idea how many variations of the 700 there were. All I had was a Vader. I had a Vader, and I tested. I'm like, hey, this is great. I didn't know about the Sixers. I didn't know about the Genesis or the Gemini. The Gemini. There's all. So now I have a Junior. I have basically all of them now because I had to go buy one of each of them and test to be sure that it actually. And I had to make variations, like literally tell me what model you need, because there's one for the 700, the 2600 plus. There's one for the 2600 4 switch, the Sixers. There's one for the. I didn't bother with the Gemini because the Gemini is so deeply socketed. I'd have to basically make almost like another board for it, and it's such a rare one. It wasn't worth it. But but this that kind of stuff. So another thing I guess is worth mentioning. In this year also, I will be eventually moving away from the 8-Bit Widgets website that I currently have. As much as I love that thing and it was a fun site to make, I'm going to probably have to go with a proper Shopify account and get a real page so that I can actually have a cart, because it's just that is actually, when you go to 8bitwidgets.com, that's actually a game engine called Construct 3. It's actually a game you're playing. It just made to look like a website, because I don't know how to make web pages, but I know how to make HTML5 games. So I just basically made a game that acts like a website. So that's that. Is there anything else? New video. I do have a couple new videos coming soon that are going to be basically instructional videos on how to use the NT port, the NT-NES, and the advanced features of the NT-NES. I know that
in terms of the NT port, I will have my video. And in terms of the NT port, I will have my video out either later this week or early next week.
You may beat me to it, then that's cool. Now, just a question: are you going to be going into the instruction? Because the manual has a lot of those different modes and stuff. Are you going to be able to take the time to go into some of that stuff, like
for the NT port?
No, sorry, the NT-NES.
No, this is the NT port.
Yeah, that's straightforward. Yeah, you're right. That's great. Yeah.
But I do open it up. I show everybody the circuit board and everything.
Awesome. No, that's cool. That's cool. What else? Bundle. So I know that Rev is talking about. He and I are going to be talking about the idea of making a Super Mario Brother bundle with the NT-NES, just to kind of combine those together. And then the same thing with I know Duck Hunter and Luke and stuff. We're also talking about the idea of maybe doing some kind of combo as well with those, just because obviously they really need each other. But I know that he's also got some. I'm not going to talk about any games he has in mind, but I know that him and William both have been talking about making some light gun games. So it's not just me working on this stuff. I might just make some free and or inexpensive, ROM games that I might release just to kind of give people some titles. I know Hogan's Alley. There was actually Shooting Gallery was a game that was one of the prototypes that was in development that unfortunately got mothballed when we lost a certain developer. But I think Hogan's Alley was another great example of a good game that would be a fun, like targets coming out and stuff like that. Like
Well, and it's one of those things where you change the sprites, you call it something different. It's your own game.
Well, what's fun too is it's like it's not like I have to pretend. It's like there's a lot of things you can still do with that concept without cloning the game. It's like it doesn't. It could be more involved than that. It could be you are now moving through an alleyway of different things. There's a lot of stuff to explore. So we're definitely not limited to just replicating another game, but certainly say it's a Hogan's Alley like Mantis Hunter.
Mantis Hunter.
Yep, that's awesome. And let's see what else. I guess that's kind of it. So so if anyone has an idea or wants to collaborate on something, again, I'm always open for that. I love doing that kind of stuff. It's fun to team up with people, because I know it's like I said, a lot of us are just kind of doing this for fun. It's a hobby, but it's still something that's I got to pay taxes on it. That's the other thing. Oh my God, I just got my LLC and I got to now start paying taxes quarterly. I have no idea how to do that shit. So I'm just like, I hate taxes. It was as it is right now. In fact, that's kind of like why my head's a little low right now until basically April. I feel like I'm not able to get my head into the game programming stuff until I get this behind me. Because I have to I'm actually looking to buy a couple of new 3D printers, which is also exciting because I don't know if you've heard of these ones. They're called Snapmaker. They're basically multicolor printers, but instead of being like a single nozzle that shares the same, it swaps colors, it has 4 dedicated nozzles that are always that color. And what's really interesting about that is first of all, it makes a lot less waste when you're trying to print something, because you do this whole purging process. You put a color in, then you print, then you stop, you retract it, you purge. It's a really wasteful process, but it was the best that was available at the time. So it's, it's just a stepping stone along the way. But anyway, I have to buy 2 more printers of that new style printer because it lets you mix and match things. Like imagine TPU and rubber and stuff could actually be mixed with the hard thing. So you can now make like, imagine a skeleton hand with joints. So you could actually come out all one piece as opposed to having to glue things together. And like at the bottom of a lot of these, if you see the newer ones, some of the improvements I've made is I actually started, and this is an evolution too. Originally, I didn't do this, but then I started just gluing literally chopped up mice pads. That's what I used to do. I would chop up mice pads with a big one of those paper cutting boards.
Yeah.
And but that was kind of sloppy and whatever, but I did it, and it's what I did for a while. But then I started printing with this TPU stuff on the bottom, but then it would kind of scrape off easy because it was just stuck to the surface, right? Like your fingernail could just kind of get under it and pop it right off. But then I finally came with the idea that if I make a slight recess, you know, and then glue it down inside there, now your fingernails and stuff can't really grip it and won't pop it off. So it's like, it's all evolving. And it's just always a learning process of just trying to make things a little bit better. So these new printers are like $900 a pop. So I got to buy 2 of those, and it's a lot of money, but I'm waiting until I taxes to figure out what I owe Uncle Sam first. So, and who knows what the tax world is like right now with this current, you know, the IRS is like, you know, who pays taxes? Well, the wealthy might not be paying taxes, but I'm sure they'll be happy to audit some small guy like myself who doesn't have, I'm not well connected. So, oh, well, we'll see how it goes.
Well, just get better connected.
I know, right? That's all it is. It's just like that.
I hear Elon Musk is a huge Intellivision fan. Should be fun.
I'm sure. Yes. I'm sure he hires, I'm sure, the best players to be good at it. So,
yeah. All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much, Caleb, for being on. Thank you, Casey, for jumping on to fill in the mic slot. I'm playing Retro Bliss tonight. So
always glad to be here when I can.
And it's always fun to have you on. But absolutely, guys, stay tuned because we will have Caleb back, and it'll be with Russ, and we're going to talk about really much more of the technical side of what you guys are producing with the Inti port and the Inti NES and other things coming up. So I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too.
Yeah,
we will see you next week.
Out. I know it's getting late. It's like what, 9:30 here. I'm in Eastern time. So, but awesome again.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So we'll see you guys next time on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. Later, guys.